In the 17th year of the Zhenghuan reign, the early dynasty of the Daming Palace in Chang'an, hundreds of ministers stood obediently. And the talented and ambitious Tang Taizong Li Shimin was angrily reprimanding the crown prince Li Chengqian. He couldn't bear this son anymore. He used to raise male pets and kill his teachers and younger brothers. Today, the Goguer Yao army violated the border, and Li Chengqian, who had been in charge of the country for several years, couldn't find a way out. What's the use of having this crown prince? As the crown prince, you are unable to share your father's worries, or contribute to the country, and have caused chaos in the entire Eastern Palace. I will abolish you today. Speaking of the end, Li Shimin found that many of the blame could not be expressed. He trembled with anger and said that I was a hero. However, this son was not as good as a bear, not like me at all. He wished he could immediately depose the crown prince. Suddenly, a person appeared from behind the crown prince. Who is this boy? Wait, why did you depose my father? The speaker was Li Xiang, the only 13-year-old grandson of the emperor, a child who had never entered the eyes of everyone. The civil and military officials of the Manchu dynasty had long known that the crown prince would be deposed today, so everyone was not surprised. However, the words of Emperor Changsun stunned everyone. How could you have the qualifications to speak? Or a questioning tone? Including Li Shimin, everyone looked at this 13-year-old child in surprise. If it weren't for the abolition of the crown prince today, he wouldn't even have the qualification to go to the palace. How dare he speak up shamelessly and say why? Li Xiang was also extremely nervous at the moment. Of course, he knew that openly blaming the emperor in feudal society was a capital offense, but he had to do so because he had no choice. 15 minutes ago, he crossed over to this person, and upon learning his identity, he was almost scared to death. It should have been his last chance. If he couldn't seize this opportunity, his father Li Chengqian would be demoted to a commoner today. And he would also be demoted to a commoner with his father, exiled to Qianzhou, and turned into a commoner who could be slaughtered by others. What would people like Li Tai, Li, and Li Zi not do? Of course, it's about strangling their father and son as soon as possible. Having the status of a grandson is the only way to enjoy all the glory, wealth, and honor. Go on the streets and bully men and women to marry 10 or 8 wives. But if the crown prince is deposed, where will a grandson come from? Plus, the system was activated 8 minutes ago. That deadly task, he must keep Li Chengqian's crown prince position. System task: prevent crown prince Li Chengqian from being deposed. Successfully reward 3,000 snow dragon cavalries, fail to die, and fly to ashes. Li Xiang never expected that other people's tasks were advancing slowly, and his own task was such a tiger wolf. Coming up was life and death, so he had no room for choice. Even if he risked the crime of beheading, he would have to grit his head and gamble that Li Shimin still had a love affair with him. At least it was his first grandson, right? In the memory of this body, he is the eldest grandson of Emperor Taizong. When he was born that year, Li Shimin and Empress Changsun held a grand banquet at the Linhua Palace, with all the civil and military officials of the third rank and above present. The scene was stunning. The memories of childhood were also filled with Li Shimin's favor for him. But unfortunately, the crown prince's father was too capable of acting and gradually lost his favor, along with his own eldest grandson, who was no longer favored. Bold, the eunuch-in-chief, Wang Di, spoke loudly and said, "I used to dare not scold the dragon son and dragon grandson like this, but your father will soon be no longer the crown prince. Can you still be the emperor's grandson? Moreover, the emperor frowned just now. Taking this opportunity can also retaliate against Li Chengqian for whipping him at the Meridian Gate, which he dare not forget for a lifetime. Get away from me. What kind of thing are you? This Tang Dynasty Zhongshan still has the surname Li. Can you talk to me? Even if I were demoted to a commoner one day, I would still be much more noble than you. I have the blood of the heavenly family, and my ancestors came from the Li family in Longxi. My great-grandfather Jinyang rose up to fight in the world, and my father was 10 or 4 years old when he came to court to listen to politics. Do you have any bullshit? Although Li Xiang is only 13 years old, When he speaks, his domineering demeanor radiates from the inside out, with the intention of guiding the world. The entire court was shocked. Wang Di is a popular figure around the emperor, and even the empress should be good at persuading him. "You are so arrogant, don't you want to mix up?" But even if you take a closer look at what Li Xiong said, there's nothing wrong with it. Where did a eunuch have the courage to scold the emperor and grandson? The eyes of Fang Xuanling and others were focused on her, their eyes flashing. Li Shimin also changed his face in an instant, with the corners of his mouth raised. "My children and grandchildren are indeed much more noble than others." The Li family in Longxi is a family that has been passed down for thousands of years, and has nothing to do with Li Shimin. Li Shimin claimed to be the one who claimed to be there. Don't we, as a passersby, know how to scratch the itch on the emperor? By the way, mentioning the contributions of his ancestors, he was still so righteous. Especially when Li Shimin fought the world, and the crown prince was in his teens. He not only pleased Li Shimin, but also had some beautiful memories of Li Chengqian. So much like, the Emperor Taizong on the throne seemed to be sleepwalking at this moment. The boy in front of him was too much like himself back then, daring to do anything. When I look at Li Chengqian, I'm not that annoying anymore. My son has a good intention, and it's all caused by these people around him. Thinking of this, eunuchs are the worst thing. Pa, the eunuch-in-chief, Wang Di, has been beaten. The guards with knives next to Li Shimin slapped him. Wang Di is the most useful person around the emperor. How dare he take action without the emperor's eyes and sword guards? The corners of my mouth are bleeding this time. Give it all. At this moment, this old man also broke out in a cold sweat and immediately knelt down. His Royal Highness, the Grand Prince of Tang, was right. This great Tang Jiangshan is surnamed Li. If the emperor dislikes everything he just did, then this head. Fortunately, Li Shimin's attention was not on him. Otherwise, at this moment, his head might have fallen to the ground, and Chang Sun Wuji and others frowned, causing the wind to change. Wang Di's old dog was beaten. Crown Prince Li Chengqian was so scared that he almost lost all his soul and soul. His son is usually submissive. Did he eat the courage of ambitious leopards today? Although not born directly by Li Chengqian, he is also his first son. He naturally has a special fondness in his heart, and now his whole body is trembling with fear. I dare not lift my head when I see your grandfather. You dare to ask him why he deposed me as the crown prince, son. Did you go up and drink? How much did you drink? How many dishes? Please forgive my father and emperor, as he is still young and does not understand court etiquette. His courtiers teach him recklessly, and he is willing to bear all the blame. Li Chengqian was about to be abolished. And having one more sin and one less sin was nothing, but his son couldn't have anything to do. He was only 13 years old. This is a bit different from history. In history, Li Chengqian was deposed after a rebellion, and it was discovered just before the rebellion was about to occur. So the animosity between the father and son is not as great. However, Li Shimin did not look at him. In Li Shimin's opinion, this son has been abolished. But this grandson, what did you just say? Why did I depose your father? What did you say? Li Shimin was not displeased with Li Zhang's rudeness, but instead opened a door in his heart and was already troubled by the issue of inheritors. This boy is very much like himself back then, a young boy, and he needs to take a good exam. If he really has talent, his eldest grandson and granddaughter will only be one word behind him. Upon hearing Li Shimin's question, Li Zhang's mind was also in a daze for a moment. He had just crossed over for more than 10 minutes. How could he possibly know what had happened to you? Report to your father. The elder brother has been busy selecting beautiful women recently. Well, with men, the officials of the Eastern Palace have not seen the elder brother for 3 days. It must be that they have not submitted the war situation of Goguryeo. Your elder brother has not answered yet, and I hope your father can forgive you. Wei King Li Taiyan sincerely said that although the two were close brothers of the same father and mother, they had already torn their faces for the throne at the moment. It seemed like they were pleading for Li Chengqian, but in reality, they were falling into a trap. As Li Shimin's legitimate second son, once Li Chengqian was deposed, this position as the crown prince of the Tang Dynasty would belong to him. We must not let Li Shimin change his view of Li Chengqian. The sins that Li Shimin did not mention just now, we must speak out. Playing with women is not a big deal for royal children. But you and men her. Li Xiong finally realized that Li Shimin failed in his eastward expedition to Goguryeo this year. Recently, the Goguryeo army had trouble at the border. Li Shimin asked his son in the court, and although the other sons did not answer well, they were better than Li Chengqian, who would only tremble without saying a word. In addition, recent evidence of Li Chengqian's rebellion has been found, and various bad things have conspired against Li Shimin. In a fit of anger, Li Shimin intends to depose the crown prince. Unexpectedly, Li Zhong's bold confrontation has occurred. Your second uncle's answer is my answer. Your father is immoral and incompetent, and he cannot help me share my worries. What qualifications does he have to stay in the East Palace for a long time? Anyone can tell that although Li Shimin's words still have a hint of sharpness, his tone has softened a lot. However, looking at Li Tai's eyes, I really want to hit him. I can't even say anything about your big brother and men. You speak it out in front of the civil and military officials of Manchu. Don't you have a face? I will settle accounts with you in the future. Li Tai, the king of Wei, also felt a thud when he saw his father's eyes. Yu was reading a book at www.uukanshu.com and thought he could move down his eldest brother today. Has there been a change, this little kid? No, my father and emperor usually dote on me. The crown prince must be mine. Upon hearing this, Li Xiong breathed a sigh of relief. If there were anything else, we might not be able to get in touch. But if we were to talk about this matter, we could easily get it. My father has recently experienced a cold wind, coupled with the wrongs of some unscrupulous individuals. And it is normal for him to forget the strategy of the border crisis in a moment of anxiety. In fact, my father has already had a good strategy to pacify Goguryeo, seeing Li Xiong fearless. In the face of danger, Li Shimin's eyes showed appreciation. Regardless of whether this strategy was feasible or not, this determination was not something that ordinary people have. He truly deserves to be my grandson, Li Shimin. Li Xiong, don't talk nonsense in the court. There is no plan to pacify Goguryeo in both civil and military affairs. If you want to sensationalize the public, be careful that your grandfather will punish you for a disrespectful crime. It is understandable that you want to save your father's heart, but lying is guilty. Without a good plan, your father and son will be guilty of bullying the emperor. This is a great crime that requires beheading and public display. If you don't apologize, kneel down on one side and don't let the courtiers see jokes. Li Tai immediately pushed his father and son to the edge of the cliff. The meaning of this statement is very clear. If you can't say it, your father and son are both guilty. If you say it, the civil and martial arts of the Manchu dynasty are not as good as you. Even if you have a good strategy, you have offended the officials and dug a good hole. Saying that I am a person with ulterior motives? I won't kill you, kid. Li Xiong looked at his second uncle in disgust, and even if my father was abandoned, it wouldn't be your turn. He didn't have any city mansion, he was foolish, and couldn't understand any wind direction. Li Xiong looked up and saw Li Shimin's murderous and smiling expression. Li Xiong also felt that at this moment, it was no joke. On the hundreds of square meters of the main hall, hundreds of people were waiting, both civil and military. Father and son's lives are at stake.